If you're buying a Maven rifle scope, you would find yourself with the question, do you opt for the kit variant more than likely? They include Warne rings like this and add mount scope caps like these. And for the $100 upcharge that Maven charges you, that's basically getting these things half off, both the caps and the rings. But even if you're just buying these rings independently, they're about $110. There's a couple things that we have to note. First off, they are American made. Secondly, you can get them in a variety of different heights and scope tube diameters. They are 7075 T6 aluminum, and that's really all there is to it. I've heard a lot of people give high praise to these rings, so when I had the option of getting them in the kit with the Maven, I was very happy to do so, because why not get as many reviews out of the way as possible? Starting at the bottom, we have a standard 1/2-inch hex, which is captive. So if you have to remove this claw for whatever reason, you're going to have to really fight this to come off, and you might destroy it. So hopefully you never have to do that. As far as the locking lug, we obviously only have one, and it's part of the T-bolt, which, keeps the ring on the gun. So it makes sense to have that have the flat spots on it to interfere with the pick rail as a perfect positive stop. That's steel, this is aluminum. Even a mild grade of steel is going to probably be better than most grades of aluminum. Maybe not 7075 in this case, but steel on aluminum, yeah, something's going to give. I mean, maybe you'd want your rings to fail at that point as opposed to the receiver on your gun. All right, maybe not the best talking point, but it's still nice to see that those are nicely squared off edges on that cross bolt. I'm a big fan of that. As far as all the different touch points on this thing, we have the claw, the base, and the cap, and you might be able to tell that there's a slight finish difference on all of them. It's almost like the anodizing is not 100% even across all three of these components. If anything, the claw and the cap look really close, but the mount base itself just doesn't seem as high quality as I was hoping for. Another thing is, look at these hard edges over here. You see the shiny spots? That's actually the anodizing getting marred up and showing the bare material underneath it. The same thing under here. In fact, I gotta say, that edge doesn't look great. It almost looks like it's a little bit of a lip over here. It might be my imagination, but it feels like there's a bit of a lip on that. I want to do something that I would not recommend to anybody do, and that's just come over here with a razor blade and, yeah. Yeah, see that? See that high spot right there? And right there, I'm gonna come over here, do the same thing. Level it, make sure it's flat, and just scrape. Yeah, look at that. Well, that's not great. This is kind of upsetting. And by kind of, I mean very. I reviewed a Warne precision mount, one-piece mount, a while ago. I forgot the exact name of that mount, but I know it was precision something. It was precision oriented, very similar to these rings. And I had some issues with the through holes on the scope caps having burrs underneath it that went towards the optic tube. And in fact, I remember it marking up the tube on my Gen 2 Razor HD. So I was very upset about that. For some people out there, they're going to say, well, I lap all of my rings and all of my mounts no matter what. And that's all fine and dandy. But if you're not doing that, there's a very high chance that your scope's going to get damaged because Warne decided not to finish their machining process properly. We're going to focus on the cap first, which looks wonderful. Looks great. No burrs. Nice little cut on this side. No relief cuts over here on the sides of the cap, which I've seen more and more commonly on even mid-range mounts and rings. And the reason for that is it doesn't pinch the tube when it goes on it, and when you torque it down, it doesn't pinch on the sides going in. It leaves a little bit of a gap, so all your clamping force is up and down, not side to side. But these look really nice other than that. Really good finish. Nothing that I could really complain about. The edge is a lot softer. Doesn't have any sort of raised lips. As for the bases themselves, we have no stainless steel inserts on these threads, but being 7075, you don't necessarily need that. We do have a bit of a nice chamfer on both the front and the back of this ring, so we shouldn't have to worry about a burr on the inside, which we do not have, which is great. But coming up on the side, you see right here, like there's a hard edge. See if this side has it. Yeah, this side has it as well. Like the first eighth of an inch or so. Looks to be flatter than it is rounder. Let's see. Well, scope tube goes right in. No issues whatsoever. So I'm assuming that what we are seeing is actually a bit of a relief cut, like I just mentioned, but on the cap side. I mean, I'm sorry, on the mount side, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. So instead of this going to just being a complete radius as it comes towards the top edge, it just goes straight. That's what I think we're seeing right there. Again, for the reasons why I mentioned earlier, once you torque down the cap, you don't want the forces crushing the tube side to side. You want all the energy to be going up and down vertically, and that should keep everything nice and true if they were designed and machined properly. As far as the bottom, though, I'm not the biggest fan of that burr. Listen. My nail's getting caught on it. I usually cut my nails before my videos, but I've completely space cadeted today and just forgot. But yeah, there's a friggin' lip there. I don't like it. But let's see how it looks on a pick rail and see if it would actually be a bother. Maybe it goes past where the flats on the pick rails are. It very well might do that. And if so, it's going to be less of a concern. And as you can see, it does, in fact, miss the pick rail slot. So that slight burr fits in between the actual pick slots, which is okay. It does not ride on top. However, if you had a base that had one pick slot here and one pick slot there, and it was completely flat on top, these rings would bind up in a way that they're not designed for. As far as how they look on a rail itself, I must say they do look quite good. And if and when I throw the Maven inside of this, I'm sure that it is going to be a very beautiful looking package. Down here, looking through the SWFA fixed 16X, we have the Warne MountainTech rings torqued down to 45 inch-pounds and confirmed 0. Our reticle is favoring the ever left edge of my target, so that's going to be our baseline. I'm going to first loosen up the front, then the rear. I'm then going to wiggle the scope around, push forward on the scope, snug up the front, then the rear, then torque the front, torque the rear. We're favoring the left side of the edge, but that gap is slightly larger, but ever so slightly, less than 1/10 of a mil. I'm going to repeat this process 3 times. That yields about the exact same result that we saw after the first one. And that one's really close to where we originally started out with. All in all, not a terrible performance. Again, less than 1/10 of a mil, I would say. And considering that these rings are included with the Maven set, I think they're still a pretty worthwhile investment. So there you have it. These Warne MountainTech rings return to 0 quite well. Less than 1/10 of a mil on the windage over three times is really not terrible in the slightest. For $100, I think there are other options out there if you want an American-made set of rings. Most notably, the UTG Pro rings would be a little bit less than this, and I can almost guarantee finished nicer than this. They're not going to be made out of 7075. I believe those are steel. I could be wrong, but they're really, beautiful rings. These for $100, a bit of a stretch. For $50 when you buy it with a Maven as part of their bundle, I think it's more than acceptable. I still don't like the burrs on the side. You could see just how rough a lot of these edges are. And I think for $100, American made or not, I think they could be finished a little bit better than that. However, they torqued on the rail and they torqued on the tube of the scope perfectly fine and left no weird marks. So at least that was good. But again, I still feel like there are better options out there. With all that being said, a huge thank you for Maven for sending these in along with their AED scope caps and their RS 1.2 to review. I'm very excited to see that there are options out there like this where you can get these for basically half price, which is pretty good, like I said. And a huge thank you for all of you for staying tuned. As always, I'll see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.